Here, 9 o'clock straight up. Thank you for joining us. This is the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners meeting for 9 a.m. Wednesday, December 6th, 2023. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time is citizen input for items not on the agenda. Is there anyone online with a raised hand feature? Great. So via phone. And we learned about unmuting at
*6.
*6.
Yeah.
Because yeah. Thank you for joining us. This is citizen input at the beginning of our board meeting. We have somebody remotely via phone. What are the last few digits? So phone number 2224. Are you available for testimony? So yeah, welcome. You are muted, so *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, well, yeah, so at the end of the meeting, I'll ask again, just in case we can get through that. So a little bit of technology. Hopefully, we're available via email. Our phone numbers are available if there's anything you want to communicate with us about. So at this time, consent agenda, and it was pointed out that we'll need to convene as the Sun River Service District for item number 1. So with that, is there a motion for the other two items?
Move approval of item number 2 and 3.
Second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes. So item number 1 from our consent agenda will convene as the Sun River Service District as that. And then consideration of board signature of a letter appointing Danny Kelly for service on the Sun River Service District Budget Committee.
Approval of item number 1, consideration of board signature on letter appointing Denny Kelly for service on the Sun River Service District Budget Committee.
I'll second the motion.
Any other discussion? So seeing none, Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes. Thank you very much for Danny Kelly for joining us. So we'll reconvene as the Board of Commissioners of Deschutes County. Item number 4, public hearing. This is a draft 2022 or 2020 to 2040 Tumalo Community Plan update. Peter Russell and Tarek, thank you for joining us. At this time, this is the time and place set for hearing regarding file number 247-23-000-509 PA 510 TA. The hearing concerns a request for the consideration for a plan amendment. Sorry about that. Making sure I'm reading the right script here. So a plan amendment and text amendment application to the Deschutes County's Tumalo Community Plan for the 2020-2040 planning period initiated by the applicant Deschutes County. Staff will outline the hearing procedures that will be followed.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Very good.
For the record, my name is Tarek Rawlings. I'm a senior transportation planner with the Community Development Department at the Department. And to my right here is Peter Russell, as well as he's a senior transportation planner as well. And I'm just going to share my screen here really quick with a presentation here. So thank you again, Chairman DeBone. For the record, again, my name is Tarek Rawlings, senior transportation planner. Today, the Board of County Commissioners will take testimony and receive written evidence concerning the county's 2020 to 2040 Tumalo Community Plan or TCP update. The file numbers are 247-23-000-509-PA and 510-TA. The board's decision on this application will be based upon the record, the staff report, and the testimony and evidence presented at this hearing and following the hearing, if the record should be left open. Sorry, I might not be coming into the mic very well. So today's hearing will proceed as follows. First, staff will explain the hearing format and how to testify at today's hearing, followed by a brief presentation on the application. Then the testimony portion of the hearing will begin. The applicant will present first. The agencies, government bodies will present next. Then next, individuals will testify. And then afterwards, the applicant will be afforded an opportunity to present rebuttal testimony. And then finally, staff can make any closing remarks if requested. Record materials may be viewed at the project website shown on the screen. And for our in-person participants today, if you wish to testify, please fill out a blue sign-up sheet and submit it to the board secretary, Brenda, to the left of the dais. Chairman DeBonne will call up in-person participants for their testimony. After your name is called, please come up to one of the tables at the front of the room before beginning your testimony. This is a hybrid public hearing with both in-person and remote participation. Before starting your testimony, please provide your first and last name as well as your mailing address. And I will note that the board has established time limits for testimony. The applicant will have 30 minutes, agencies will have 10 minutes, members of the public will have 3 minutes, and the applicant will have 10 minutes for rebuttal. For our remote participants, if you want to testify, you must be logged into Zoom or have called in using the Zoom dial-in option. When Chairman DeBonne asks if anyone would like to testify, you will need to use the raise hand feature to notify the board. To do this, you need to press the raise hand button on your computer or smart device, or if you called in, dial *9. When it is your turn to provide testimony, you'll be promoted from an attendee to a panelist. You may experience a brief pause as your status changes. Once you've joined as a panelist, you'll be able to turn on your camera if you'd like to. In addition to oral testimony, if anyone has written testimony to submit, please hand it to me. If you're in person, you can submit your written testimony to me after your testimony. And if you're participating remotely, you can submit your written testimony via email to me at tarek.rawlings@deschutes.org, which is shown on the screen here. The chair and staff are responsible for conducting an orderly hearing. Any testimony or behavior which is inappropriate will be addressed and may result in that member of the public being removed from the hearing. And at this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for the remainder of the script.
Proceeding. Does any,
I will now return to the script and note that the commissioners must disclose any ex parte contacts, prior hearing observations, biases, or conflicts of interest. Thank you, Chair.
So does any commissioner have anything to disclose? And if so, please state the nature of same and whether you can proceed.
I have no conflicts and I can proceed.
And I have no conflicts and I believe I can proceed.
And I have no conflicts and I believe I can proceed. Just one interesting note, last year we went to the National Finals Rodeo. We got a photo with Heritage Brand. It was Tumalo's, premier artisan goods. And it was a Facebook photo. And somebody said, you should be disqualified because you know these people. So it's just interesting that, somebody found that on Facebook and then they sent an email too. But I would just acknowledge that. And this is a legislative matter. So communication and discussion is appropriate. Does any party wish to challenge the commissioner based on any of us based on ex parte contacts, biases, or conflicts? So this is challenging. Is there anyone online with the raised hand? So we may still have that same hand raised. So at this time, let's see if that person can join us and just explain, because maybe they wanted to testify in this matter, and see if we can get them unmuted. So you've joined us. Thank you very much for joining us. It was a phone number of 2224. Is that what it was?
Yes.
So this is practice to see if we can get you in.
Hello.
Hello. Thank
Hello,
you very
can you
much.
hear me?
So thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you. My name is Susie Hart. I live in Tumalo, although my mailing address is P.O. Box 87, Bend, 97709. And I would like to comment that there are
So Susie,
yes?
we're working through a process right now to open up the public hearing, and we're basically practicing to make sure you could get on. The question of the moment is, do you see any conflicts or biases by the commissioners right before we open up this public hearing? So
Oh, I'm
you can
sorry. No,
answer
no,
yes or
no.
no,
I
but thank
don't.
you for joining us. And then we'll
No.
leave you online here
Sorry.
to testify in just a moment.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we'll acknowledge that there's no challenges. So seeing none, the hearing is now open and staff will proceed with a brief report. So it'll just be a few more moments and then we can have you join us, Susie.
Thank you very much, Chair DeBonne. I'm going to share my screen again here. Just begin a brief staff report. So just beginning with sort of the underlying purpose of today's public hearing. Today, we're trying to provide context and background on the Tumalo Community Plan itself and recap some development of that draft document, including the Planning Commission recommendation. And really, it might be a best practice to focus on the changed policies that have been changed since the previous draft of the Tumalo Community Plan for the purpose of this update. Today's public hearing is intended to collect testimony from the public and anyone else that cares to offer testimony. And then we'll lastly identify some next steps for the public review of this plan update. So a community plan is an appendix to the comprehensive plan itself. It's like the comprehensive plan in that it has a 20-year planning horizon. This particular community plan deals with the specific geographic area of the Tumalo unincorporated community. So it's defined by the boundary of that unincorporated community, and it basically is trying to set an overall vision for how that community would like to grow and operate. It contains basically high-level goals and policies related to those concerns about growth or how the community would like to be structured or planned for. It's a guidance document ultimately for land use patterning and land use development and uses in Tumalo, but it does not contain specific approval criteria. There's no change to the actual development code. What is Tumalo? It's an unincorporated community that's outlined in Oregon Administrative Rule 660, Section 22, and then specifically within that section, it's defined as a rural and unincorporated community. The local code that is administered in Tumalo, so the county code section is 18.67 related to the Tumalo rural community. And just as we'd mentioned previously, there's no actual changes to that section 1867. So no changes to the development code. And so where is Tumalo located? There's three maps here. They're a little bit hard to read the text, but on the far left, it just shows the broad outline of the unincorporated community boundary there, showing sort of the location within the county. It's adjacent north of the Tumalo State Park. And then it's considerably northwest of the City of Bend's urban growth boundary. The zoning map in the middle shows the various zoning districts within Tumalo. There are residential zones, industrial, commercial, as well as research and development zone. And then on the far right shows the lots within Tumalo. The orange lots are the vacant lots and the gray have been built out. So it still shows that there is a significant potential for some development and growth within Tumalo that we're ultimately planning for here. And I'll pass this one over to Mr. Russell here.
All right, Peter Russell, Senior Transportation Planner, Emeritus for Deschutes County. So when we were doing the Tumalo Community Plan, there were several other plans the county was also doing. So we had a Deschutes County Comprehensive Plan that Nicole Mardell was leading. I was leading the Transportation System Plan, also the Tumalo Community Plan. And then we also received a Transportation Growth Management Grant from the Oregon Department of Transportation for $75,000, of which $50,000 was put toward looking at the bike, ped, and transit element of the Tumalo Community Plan. So what we had was a lot of staff working on these. So Tarek was assisting with the Transportation System Plan. Nicole was assisting with the Tumalo Community Plan, as was Tarek. And then Tarek was also assisting with the bike, ped, transit element. So we had a lot of work on staff on this community plan, almost as many staff members involved as on the larger comprehensive plan and the TSP. They overlapped in time, so we made sure we always had coordination. We also had outreach to various community members and stakeholders, which Tarek can talk about in a little bit. So basically, even though there was lots of balls in the air, we made sure that we were juggling them all appropriately.
And then so some other activities that were happening in Tumalo, so separate from the overlapping plans we just talked about, there were other activities going on. So there was just a lot happening in Tumalo. One of them was a county funded sewer feasibility study for basically wastewater concerns in Tumalo. Largely, it's septic driven, and so this was a way to discover whether or if sewer would be feasible in that community. There was an ODOT construction of a 2-lane roundabout at the Highway 20 O.B. Riley Cook intersection that's largely complete at this point. And then there was a county approved multi-use path that went underneath Highway 20 and 4th Street down to Strickler that provides easier route and kind of a safer corridor for pedestrians and bicyclists to cross Highway 20. And so the purpose for why we're updating this 2010 to 2030 Tumalo plan to reflect a 2020 to 2040 planning period is that typically we update these comprehensive plans at the halfway mark. So about 10 years in, this was initiated around 2020. And so that was kind of that time and place is largely what prompted this update process to begin. There's also been significant population growth in the community that prompts changes in different land use patterns and development and interest in the area that sometimes prompts a different look in terms of planning and perspective. There's been a rise of local businesses in the area. And then we just talked about the small sewer system. There is an existing small sewer system that's on the southwest side of Highway 20 in a new neighborhood. And that was a pretty large development that gathered some significant interest from the community. We talked about the Highway 20 Cook O.B. Riley roundabout. That was a very significant ODOT project that the community was very aware of and very involved with. And then there's overall an increase in traffic on Highway 20 Cook Avenue and Klein Falls Highway that folks have had some concerns with speeding and just traffic flow in general about. So the public outreach process for the Tumalo community plan up to this point began with basically a series of flyers that Peter and I put out in the community, just at different commercial areas, different central sort of public spots, advertising the first public open house. We also rolled out a website that was specific for the Tumalo community plan that outlined some of the public processes and put some of the preliminary information on there. There was a story map component of the website that allowed for sort of a visual and interactive background of this planning process, but also some of the changes that have happened in Tumalo. And then ultimately that informed 3 different open houses. The first being sort of a kickoff meeting, the second sort of collecting input on goal and policy language, and the third rolling out the draft document the draft goals and policies to the public. We developed a contact list based on all of that outreach and the folks that had been involved up to that point for email contact. We also, in addition to sort of those widespread outreach efforts, we engaged in a series of meetings that we referred to as meet a planner sessions, and they were more or less one-on-one opportunities for individuals to request that a staff planner meet with them for about an hour. Usually we met in the coffee shop or the Bite in Tumalo and just kind of answered any questions that folks had. So that made it a little bit easier for folks that may not have been available to attend the open houses or maybe didn't feel comfortable asking questions in a group setting or in a public hearing. So that was one of those options for getting input from and to provide some clarity to the residents there. We also put together a stakeholder group largely comprised of business owners, business figures, kind of local folks that had been in the area for a very long time and knew sort of different eras of Tumalo. Those were very informative. We also engaged in a planning commission public process that concluded in October. So that public hearing collected additional testimony. There were some recommendations made by the planning commission that we'll go over here briefly. And then lastly, we put out a published notice as well as some social media rollout for noticing today's public hearing for December 6th.
Tarek, do you know how many people you actually had meet a planner sessions?
I personally had probably 3 or 4, and I think
Okay.
overall we had close to 15 or 20.
Okay, so that was really,
It was very successful. I
Right.
thought. Yeah. And
that's very thoughtful.
oh, thanks. Yeah. And I mean, it went for sometimes longer than an hour. It was really very comprehensive. We tried to really collect any input they had, even if it wasn't necessarily related to, we had input about surrounding properties and things like that with a lot of those meet a planner sessions. That was really informative. So.
Thank you.
Of course, yeah. And then some topics raised by the public here, and these are going to be somewhat familiar, but this is in the public record, and these are really high level summaries of some of the public comments received so far. So just on the screen here, there was a comments about the fear of losing the rural or small town feel amid the rapid growth of the community. There were comments asking for code amendments for multifamily dwellings that had been raised. There was comments related to asking for signage and increased vehicle safety in Tumalo, mostly related to the school, and just general speeding in the area. There was concerns around Deschutes River sort of protective measures, people using the river appropriately, some of the public put-ins, whether those are getting overused, and some of the trails, concerns like that, just right within the river corridor. Concerns over drawbacks of tourism, if there would be kind of a loved to death situation in Tumalo. There were concerns about any kind of private sewer costs or any effects, any requirements that were tied to any kind of a sewer system that might be rolled out. And then there were comments related to roundabout art and other public art in Tumalo. And so this one, I think I'll pass this one back over to Peter here, just for some of the ins and outs of the drafting of the TCP.
Excuse me. So we have a 2010 to 2030 TCP. We kept the same vision statement for the 2020 to 2040 based on public input. And we added 3 new goals and 17 new policies. These were all based on public input, mainly tied to those issues that you saw in the preceding slide, that folks who were living in Tumalo or shopped and worked in Tumalo came to our open houses and said, these are the things that are very important to us. See what you can do about them. We had changes to 3 existing goals and 26 existing policies, which I'll walk through in a moment, not ad nauseum, but how you can see the summary. No changes to 9 existing policies. We just kept the exact same language we had from the 2010 document. We deleted 10 policies because either the text was outdated or that was the object of that policy had been achieved. So for instance, the 2010, they talked about concerns about the US 20 Cook-Obi-Riley intersection. Okay, ODOT's now got a 2-lane roundabout. It's under operation, so we didn't need any goal or policy language on that per se. Again, because it's a large document, lots of changes, it can be difficult to track all the way through. So we went through a color-coded version of the TSP goals and policies. And we also had a spreadsheet, which for those who really like the details, had here's the 2010 exact language, here's the 2020 exact language, here's the change, and here's why. And so those last 3 items, the draft plan, the color-coded goals and policies, and the spreadsheet, we handed out at the last open house in May, which was roughly 85 days before the Planning Commission hearing, the first evidentiary hearing, so people would have time to read and absorb the document. So what we normally do in planning with a new document, if there's brand new language, you use underline, and if you're deleting language, you do strike through. And when you look at the document with all the underlines and strike throughs, it's completely unreadable, basically. So what we did for the goals and policies is handed out this document where these are all the goals and policies we proposed back in the May open house based on public input. And if it's green, there was no change between 2010 and 2030. If there was blue, there was change between the 2010 document and the 2020, but the 2020 document still has carried forward the intent and consistent with the 2010 document. We usually tightened up the language or maybe shifted a little bit, but it's basically going to get you to what the 2010 document was intended to get to in this 2020 document with the blue language. Yellow, which is the one we would suggest, the board, you have free to look at any and all these colors, but we would suggest you concentrate on the yellow. That's the new language based on public input. Excuse me. And then I said, we also had this spreadsheet, which is color coded as well. So you can, find your way through, and that has the actual language that we had from 2010 versus 2020, and then why we made those changes.
So just going back to the Planning Commission's recommendations. So at the conclusion of their deliberations, the Planning Commission recommended that the board adopt the TCP as drafted with 4 amendments. And so we'll go over those amendments right now. The first was to remove policies number 10 and 11 from the natural resources, open space, and recreation policies section of the TCP's goals and policies. That had 5 commissioners in favor, 1 commissioner in opposition, and 1 commissioner abstained. And that's basically, those are related to park districting and either creating new districts or annexing into existing districts. There was pushback to district or creating a new district in public comment, and that seems to have been reflected in this Planning Commission amendment here that's recommended to the board. The second amendment was to add a policy to explore legislative changes to limit multifamily housing to 4 units in Tumalo. That had 7 commissioners unanimously in favor. And then I'll just keep going here. The third amendment was support for public art in Tumalo. 7 commissioners unanimously in favor. That was fairly broad. And then the last, fourth and final amendment was to encourage residents and community groups to reach out to Deschutes County for updates and information. And there were 5 commissioners in favor, 2 commissioners in opposition to that particular amendment. So next steps for the TCP update are that today the board will hold their public hearing. The board has discretion over whether an open record period is imposed at the conclusion of today's public hearing. The board at the end of either the open record period or at the end of whatever public hearing process they have discretion over, the board will hold deliberations at a future date. And then ultimately the board will recommend either adoption of the TSP as drafted, adopted as amended, or to deny the TSP. And then however the board votes on that, staff will essentially send post adoption notice to DLCD and kind of move forward with monumenting the decision of the board. And so with that, we're available for any questions, and thank you for your time. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Are there any questions?
One question that came up since our work session on Monday, after rereading through the draft document, the draft document explains that flows will be increasing in the Deschutes River over time. This is in response to kind of broad scale regulatory changes aimed at restoring the Deschutes River and fish and wildlife habitats. I don't have a good understanding of what the impacts of that are going to be. I mean, there are floodplain designated zones in Tumalo, but I don't have a sense of whether the floodplains will actually expand as a result of this change in flows, particularly winter flows, or whether they'll, the same floodplains will be floodplains. They'll just be a little bit more wet, for example. So I'm wondering if this came up at all, in the analysis, in the public engagement around the plan draft, and if so, kind of can we say anything about that, for the folks in Tumalo and to the folks in Tumalo, just so everyone is aware of changes that might be coming.
Sure. I can speak to the coordination part, and I know that Will Groves is our planning manager, but also our certified floodplain manager. And so I think he's available online if we do want to promote him as a panelist. He'll have certainly more technical info. But Will and I engaged with Kyle Gorman from OWRD, and that was and a couple other folks just in sort of coordination meetings with the water community. And there were discussions around that floodplain boundary and the FEMA changes that would essentially come out of maybe these increased flows, or just the update of any kind of mapping should FEMA undertake that. I do know that there was variation in where it wasn't just a clean increase of the boundary across like an entire, the western bank obviously is where we were mostly looking, just because of interface with some of those residential properties there. But we were looking on both sides, and luckily Kyle had he'd been working in that area since he was 19 or something. And so he had a ton of historic knowledge that was very useful. I do think if it's not too much trouble, we might promote Will Groves to a panelist just to get a little bit of feedback. But there was a very specific phase of this sort of preliminary outreach where we talked with folks from the water community and got a sense of what that increased flow might be. Obviously, we were working with more like LiDAR kind of specific GIS information to sort of model that increased flow. But
yeah, I mean, the most important thing to me is that if there are affected property owners, that they have a sense of what's coming, and to the extent possible that the plan prepares them for the changes, kind of sets them up to be prepared for whatever changes are coming.
I believe Will.
Good morning, commissioners. Your planning manager, Will Groves, in his role as a floodplain manager. So with the habitat conservation plan for the spotted frog, of course, there's a anticipation of increased flows and winter flows in particular in the Deschutes as we move forward in time. And we know that peak flooding in Tumalo has frequently occurred in the winter. And so there is an intuition on the behalf of people who participated in that process that the cumulative effect of that might be higher peaks in Tumalo under certain circumstances. To date, there hasn't been any sort of formal modeling or studying associated with this. We had this flagged as an issue. It turned out that in the community discussion, we didn't receive a lot of feedback about this. I think this is, as your floodplain manager, this is a source of ongoing concern. FEMA at intervals provides us updated flood studies and flood maps. And right now, other Oregon communities are significantly behind us on the iteration of the flood map that they've received. We have the modern flood map, and other communities still have ones that go back to much older iterations. So I know that we're not currently a priority for new mapping or modeling. That said, I think it's important that we make people aware of the hazard that they might be exposed to under these scenarios. And it's something that we're tracking, just not a lot of community interest in that. So I've got my ears out for opportunity for dollars to engage in these, in these types of modeling and studying. Frankly, there's a difficulty that can come out of this is that if we restudy this and we determine that the flood hazard is higher than was previously modeled and mapped, one of the effects is that existing dwellings can be exposed to significant increases in insurance obligations. So there's some competing pressures here. Certainly, you want people to be aware of and build to and plan to the current notion of what the risk is best modeled and mapped. But there is conversely, there can be significant public difficulties with updating these maps as it can expose people to non-trivial increases in cost with their insurance. So definitely some competing pressures there, something I'm tracking, but something that didn't come up as a significant community interest during this process.
Couple questions. Number one, we have FEMA has updated these maps for the Tumalo area more recently than many parts of the state. But also there's this change in flow regime that's happening that may make those maps not very useful. So do you have a sense of when FEMA would come back around to do the floodplain mapping again, just kind of left to its own devices?
So we had received these mapped updates at 10-year intervals historically, and then 2007 is the last one that we've received because there are other communities that still haven't received effectively the 2007 iteration of the map. So I don't anticipate us being targeted for that. The second reason why we wouldn't be targeted is that there are communities that have thousands of homes in the floodplain. We have hundreds, and we haven't, and there are communities that have had repetitive and significant flood losses. We haven't, knock on wood. Grateful for that. And so I don't know that we would be targeted by FEMA for these updates anytime soon. This is something I can definitely ask more about. When we have had discussions with FEMA, I've identified this as an issue. But I can prod them harder to see what resources are available to update these maps and bring information to the board about that. I just want to note that that these types of mapping and updates have been, for the reasons stated previously, particularly the financial obligation that it can put on owners subject to additional hazard. They have been hugely unpopular in other places in the state. So it's a balance there, but I think it's one worth exploring. And ultimately, it's something that we would have to set in motion. So I can ask some questions and get you some additional information about what that might look like to engage with that process, and maybe think about that in our 24 work plan about seeing what that might look like and seeing if the board's interested and the community's interested in engaging in that.
Yeah. No, this is a very tricky question. People don't want to know about something that might lead to increased insurance premium costs for them until the disaster comes, and then they wish they had known and addressed it a little bit more thoroughly earlier. Is it appropriate to include some of this discussion in the Tumalo community plan, just so that again, so that people are understanding that there may be increased hazards if we get the information to accurately predict for people where flooding might occur. There may be insurance implications for that. Would that be an appropriate thing to include in the Tumalo community plan, just, so that we have, done our job and made people in this community, aware of what might be in their future?
Yeah, certainly. And I'll let Tarek speak to this as my subject matter expert. I believe we have some discussion about the effects of the habitat conservation plan and the possibility for increased flooding. We certainly won't have any study information within the horizon that we're trying to wrap this plan up, but it's something that I can take on as an ongoing duty. Tarek, if you could confirm that we do have some discussion about the flooding, the cause of the flooding, and the kind of our intuition that it might result in increased hazard in the current draft of the plan.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, so page 16 of the drafted TSP or TCP, excuse me, is it's sort of a discussion of the floodplain zone, but there's reference to those 2007 maps, the sort of the update process, as well as that increased flow factor. So it's referenced sort of framed by the HCP, I would say, but there is a discussion in there on page 16. If you have any recommendations or changes for that section, we'd be happy to incorporate them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that just kind of the insurance implications. I mean, but maybe just some brief mention of that. I'm not sure whether that would make sense or not, or whether it's good to just say, hey, there might be increased flooding from this. I mean, a little spatial specificity, like where there might be increased flooding concerns. If you got some of that information from OWRD, that might be useful as well.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you very much for the direction. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a public hearing on the matter, and we want to thank our telephone participant for standing by, and we'll kick you off if you can introduce yourself again and please provide testimony. I think it was Susie.
Susie Hart from Tumalo.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thanks for joining us.
Hello. Oh, okay, thank you. And sorry for my mistake earlier.
Oh, no,
I was
that's
trying to be first in line because I have another appointment to go to. But anyway, so I have a couple of concerns. One is about procedure. I continue to feel like most of the things that I would be interested, or anything going on in the county, I wouldn't know. Everything I have found out by accident. The only notice goes in terms of newsprint is in the bulletin, which has extremely low readership. I have asked several times that it be posted in the source, which I have talked to both entities, and there's a much greater readership of the source. Some people don't use Facebook and other places. I know that the county's tried to make some other options, but when you talk about lack of community interest, I don't think it's lack of community interest. I think it's lack of community knowing and being informed about what is going on. Okay, the second open house where the community input was given was, I felt, very controlled and limited in terms of getting input, and I know the county has to try to help move things along, but I didn't feel like it was really allowed the community to voice their concerns because it was so controlled and so, I don't know even how to explain how it was done. Anyway, in regards to the plan, the main thing with the vision statement being to keep the rural area having a rural feel, and yet there's no teeth to that. There's no way of saying what is it going to be in terms of architecture, in terms of roads, in terms of anything. And so it's nice to say, but at this point, it seems to me like it's simply lip service. For instance, the proposed roundabout at Cook and Tumalo Road, there's been no community input on that I know of. It's not even in the Tumalo Community Plan under transportation. It's hidden on page 2 in the introduction as a given. And I've talked to many people in the community that don't feel a roundabout there is going to keep the rural feel to Tumalo. The speed on Klein Falls, which I've been here almost 38 years, it used to be called Klein Falls Road. And that when those new signs were put up a decade or so ago, it said road. And then somewhere, seems like in the dark of the night, but I'm sure it wasn't, a little sticker was put over that perfectly matches, and now it says highway. Once that was done, the speed people went down that road increased vastly. So I don't think the roundabout is going to do anything about the rest of the high-speed traffic, which is often 70 miles an hour, passing farm implements and tractors and bicycles. And anything to do to make that road a highway only increases speed, increases kill of the mule deer. And anyway, I won't go on about that. I've talked about that before. The other thing is, I agree with the comments that I've read that were submitted to the Planning Commission about having some kind of architectural committee or something. And I have more, but I'll submit that in writing. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for testifying today. So at this time, it is a public hearing. Is there anybody else willing or requesting to speak on this matter? We have a blue form to request. Please do.
Oh, yeah. We can take it. Yeah.
Yep, that's fine.
A few notes, so I would stay
Great.
organized.
Thank you.
Kelsey Kelly, 20355 Swally Road in Tumalo. I come here today not representing the Planning Commission, which I serve on, representing Tumalo, but as myself. Just with a couple things to let you all know, it was really informative for me to work through this process with the Planning Commission because I was able to read all public comments and hear public testimony. And then I also come with 41 years of experience being a Tumalo resident. In a nutshell, in my opinion, we really don't want Tumalo to change. We love it the way it is. But I'm not naive enough to know that that is not possible and that change is inevitable. What I am hoping for, and I think that the draft does a pretty good job, is just making it sustainable, responsible growth that aligns with the vision of keeping it a rural community town. So I support the draft with the amendments put forth from the Planning Commission. I just want to touch base on a couple things. Speculative land purchases are already occurring with the anticipation of sewer, and it will come eventually, and for good reason. So I'm not anti-sewer. I understand that in order to protect our domestic water in that valley and protect the river, we do need some alternatives for when septic systems fail. But I do understand that this will cause rapid growth. Due to the historic Laidlaw plots, the downtown lots are unusually small and support the illusion that dense population is available. Those lots, average 3,000 square feet. And it's just not, we don't have the resources to support that kind of development. Laidlaw Water testified that they don't have the capacity to service domestic water to those lots. They're already at capacity and they need to meet certain reserves for fire suppression. And so they don't have the water systems to support that kind of growth. And then just the topography of the land, it's a small valley. Getting those kind of resources to the city is just very or the town, I shouldn't call it a city, is just very difficult. So we just don't have the ability for natural resources to support that kind of dense growth in Tumalo. So that was my first concern, is just how can we limit dense growth through, policy change. My other concern is traffic in Tumalo. And I don't know if the draft addresses forward-thinking traffic. My concern is that although the little town of Tumalo hasn't grown significantly because of sewer is not available to most of the town, the greater Tumalo area has grown quite a bit, and all that traffic does come through Cook Avenue. And then additionally, as we look forward, the Thornburg Resort is going to provide increase our traffic through downtown Tumalo significantly. And I just don't see in the draft language that looks forward with our traffic concerns. And so I just kind of want to bring it to the attention. Hey, could you guys keep that in mind? Just to know that that's something that's really going to affect our community, is increased traffic. But I want to just thank you guys for your thoughtful consideration for our little town. And it means a lot to a lot of us. As you can tell, there's a lot of very prideful Tumalonians with strong opinions, but for good reason, because we just really value that community, and we really value the way it is now. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? So as I say, this is the oral portion of a public hearing on this matter. Is there anyone else with a raised hand feature? Okay, so seeing none, we'll figure out the next steps here. At this time we can close an oral portion and possibly leave a written record open, or maybe not. I mean, we've got good input. Planning Commission's reviewed this also.
I guess one question I have for staff. I mean, I know that there's been a lot of public input on this planning process over time. It seems like, I mean, we didn't have a packed room today. So I'm wondering, is that do we think that that's a sign that people feel like they've tracked the process, they've had their chance to input, and that they're ready to kind of move on? Or who's
going to answer that question? Yeah.
I think
kind of the way that that staff could answer that question is to track for me kind of public participation in all of these engagement opportunities over time, and just to say, I guess the question is, has it been tapering off? How many people came to the Planning Commission, the most recent Planning Commission meeting on this topic, to give comment?
So
Is somebody has their hand up back there?
So as I say, we are talking about closing this, but I'd say it is still open. How about we finish this thought process real quick and then go from there?
So generally in any long range planning process, you have a slide down at the start, full house, and usually it tapers just as part of the process, because as people find things they agree with, they tend to say, okay, I'm done. And so it's not unusual to see a decline. Our first open house, it was probably over 100 people. Our second open house, again, I have to go back and look at the numbers, but 50, 75. The last open house, we had about 20. Planning Commission, we had probably 8, 10,
maybe 10 or
yeah,
15 the most.
Yeah. And again, I'm not diminishing who comes, who doesn't. But it's inevitable in a planning process. You do have people drop off no matter what the topic is. Usually there's exceptions to the rule, but in this case, the optimist in me likes to think, well, they like what we've done. So again, I could be completely off base, but it's not unusual to have them dropped down. One of the reasons we had such the big change in the second open house, we had a dot exercise, put 3 dots on the goals or policies you like, put 3 dots on the ones you hate. I don't know if that was control or not, but it was an attempt to, when you have all these goals and policies, we're trying to get people focused on the most important ones. And so then the draft reflected those that they hated. We modified those that they liked. We said, okay, we're on track there. So trying to get the public pulse. We used some informal voting and Mentis on one of the open houses. So we never tried to control or direct where the outcome of the plan was going. And so I'd like to think that as we developed the plan in response to public input, more and more people thought, okay, this is getting me where I'm going. This is protecting Tumalo. This is going to give me the Tumalo in 2040 that I want when I'm here in 2020. The sewer was the big issue. We always had to start every meeting practically by saying this is not a sewer meeting because we weren't talking about land use or transportation. Sewer is separate, but we tried to address their questions. One of the open houses, we had the sewer rep there to answer them. So again, we knew that was the most hot button issue in Tumalo. So we did new goals and policies specifically for that. I can address the traffic stuff later if you want, because I know you have a public member who wants to comment, but I'd be happy to answer any more questions you might have.
I just think what Tarek said, where 20 of you spent an hour with people in our community, I think that had to be incredibly helpful. I know I was at the other meetings and yeah, I will agree with you. There were a lot of people at the first one and it did taper off, but I think those private meetings really help a lot of people that want to be heard. And I am really, I think that's a really good way to go future planning in order to really give people an opportunity that aren't comfortable in talking in front of a whole group. I do want to be heard.
Yeah, I mean, just to give you a sense of where I'm going with this, I'm trying to assess whether folks who have something to say have had a chance and have spoken to their, to their heart's content, because that determines whether I think we should close the hearing, close the written testimony, and when. And by contrast, I'm tracking you that people's participation does taper off in these processes. But I mean, in the last couple of weeks, we're also seeing the transportation system plan still. My email box is still being flooded every day with more comments about that. So. In that case, clearly people still want to say more. So thanks for adding a little context there. That's all.
This may help you. So in addition to the legal notification for the Planning Commission, as Tarek mentioned, we had a constant contact list. And so we sent to all our constant contact people from the Tumalo Community Plan, hey, here's when the Planning Commission is going to have their open hearing. So kind of like, so we had 5 open houses and 2 planning commissions. That's like 5 different opportunities in addition to the normal and formal one-on-ones. But we made sure that people knew when whether they liked the plan or hated the plan, we made sure that they know here's your opportunity to comment in front of these bodies.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So public testimony, somebody had a raise hand feature online. Great, Christine, thanks for joining us. You may have been promoted to a panel member. So Christine Larson, thank you. Maybe need to unmute yourself.
Thank you. I'm just wanting to talk about the notice, the constant contact. I don't think I've received it. I do need to check on that. But using the Bend Bulletin, they are now mailing out the notices or mailing out the newspaper. We're not even getting it delivered. And I am not at home in Tumalo a lot during the winter, but this is something that is important. And so anyway, I just wanted to discuss that, even just mailing out a one-time postcard to the residents, because I would see that on my mail delivery or somebody would tell me, would be wonderful. The Bend Bulletin isn't the best way to get this out. So anyway, that's just sort of what I wanted to say, because I will be, I'd like to send some comments. Being out of town, another Tumalo resident told me about this, so I thought I'd better got online. And then about the comment about Thornburg. Thornburg hasn't been considered in the traffic study, because my understanding is the one from 2007 that they submitted was accepted because that was high traffic. Well, we know there's more high traffic now. And unfortunately, there's two people that keep saying yes to everything. So we do need to look at the increased traffic with Thornburg, because it does look like with the commissioners constantly voting in favor that we are going to have Thornburg. So please consider them, or else how they can invest in some of the upgrades. That would be great. But again, my information to get onto this meeting, because I did miss the last comment period, was because of another resident that called me. Thank you for your time.
Question for you. Do you have other comments you want to put on the record? Or did you say?
Well, yeah, and if we extend it, I don't want to see a roundabout go in there. I do have, we have a farm, we have horses, and I just can't deal with having my horses go through one more roundabout. So anyway, yeah, and seeing the accidents that are happening at Cooley and the roundabout there were a couple rather bad ones in the last few days that I've read on Pulse Point. I am concerned about adding another roundabout there to slow down traffic and add the turn. The right of way is another issue, but I can say, yes, I'm not one that's in favor for yet another roundabout in our rural community. And thank you for that.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much for your testimony, Christine. Is there anyone else? Okay, so as I say, at this time is the oral portion of this. So I would propose that we could close an oral portion of this testimony and then discussion about if we want to leave it open for some written feedback. And my thought process is, I mean, this is a recorded session right now. If the word gets out, people want to follow this. Great introduction about the process, a little bit of discussion about how we got here. There could be somebody that wants to write up some more information. So I wouldn't be opposed to, leaving a written record open for a while.
I think it would be good.
Okay.
It's really important. I love Tumalo. I usually stop there, especially when the fruit stand was open all summer. So I really miss that, because it was, it's just it's a wonderful small community. And I think it should be cherished and sustainable, but cherished.
You support that, Commissioner?
I'm open to holding the written record open.
1 week would be the next Wednesday at 4:00.
Perfect. And so just to kind of confirm on record, we would, the board is voting to continue the written record until 4 p.m. on Wednesday, December 13th.
And this is a legislative matter. I mean, if somebody wants to give us a call, we can still communicate. Written record is available now for this public hearing process till next week. And at this time, we'll confirm that oral portion is closed in this setting. So.
Just a quick thought, given that you probably won't be back on the 20th for deliberations, given that if the record closes on the 13th, you're not going to come back to the 20th. The board then doesn't meet the week between Christmas and New Year's. Do you want to give folks a bit more time? And then you'll still have plenty of time to prepare a packet for board deliberations, likely in early January. Just a thought because
as I say,
time frame
we're going to slip through the holidays here, no matter what we do. So yeah, I understand.
I guess the contrasting question would be, what is the urgency of completing the plan?
That's completely at the discretion of the board. There's nothing on the staff's end to make this happen at any certain time. I think that more notices or more opportunity is typically better from our perspective, but it's up to the board of commissioners.
There's no projects in the plan that we're waiting for plan adoption to proceed with.
Not to our end.
Okay. So, as I say, written record could be left open for 2 weeks. I guess my thought is if the community can get defocused. I mean, right now is a moment where we if we get it written record closed in 1 week, yes, it may slip a couple weeks into the next year before we bring it back for final deliberations. But yeah, it's been quite a process when was it started? What was the date?
2 years.
Late 20.
Yeah, I know. So as I say, I've been to a few of those community meetings too.
I think we're past the 2-year mark.
2 years, yeah. I mean, I would kind of lean towards just leaving it open for 1 week, because then people don't have to worry about, oh, did I remember to do it or not? Either you do it in the next week or you don't, because then it's just a stable package. Yeah, that's my conclusion. You support that?
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm open either way.
Yeah. And as I say, I mean, legislative process, we're going to go. So that'll be for the written records for December 13th at 4:00.
Thank you very much, Chair. And if there's no other questions from the commission, I think that's all we have.
Yeah, so just a statement. I mean, big picture. I mean, this is Tumalo Community Plan. This was the first update to a chapter of our comprehensive plan that was done 10, 12 years ago now. And the first update for that, it's a beautiful little package. I mean, if for somebody that wants to say, oh, what is this thing called Tumalo? And if you flip through this and then you see the policies and objectives, it helps get you grounded about what this thing is. Just explaining the urban unincorporated community concept, the land use patterns, and the community discussion about sewers and wanting to stay small, and having all these tourist bikes go through in the summer and having the bike be real exciting. It really does put it in perspective what this thing Tumalo is for anybody to be able to read. So I just wanted to show my enthusiasm on this work product itself.
Well, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. I did want to maybe add one last thing that that is Peter's actual final.
Oh, here we
That's
go.
Just wanted to thank Peter personally for all the work he's done shepherding these through, and just all the help he's provided me and numerous other staff over the years. So thanks, Peter.
Thank you very much. And I got a question for you though. So how does a roundabout in the community relate to this Tumalo Community Plan? And you were almost going to speak on that a moment ago. So we have the TSP also. So before we say goodbye.
So two things. First off, I'd also like to thank Tanya Saltzman and Kyle Collins from our long range unit. Kyle's the genius behind all the story maps. Tanya helped edit it. So basically it was all the long range staff worked on this plan for a community of roughly 600. That's the amount of input and intensity the county put towards it, because it was something the community wanted. And so it was all hands on deck. In terms of a roundabout, they're like the safest intersection treatment you can get. The way you slow incoming traffic is the deflection with the splitter islands. So what we say in the transportation industry about a roundabout versus a traffic signal, you have a crash at a traffic signal, you're calling an ambulance. You have a crash at a roundabout, you're just calling a tow truck. So they slow down speeds. The other thing that they do, if you're coming from the north down Klein Falls Highway, which is originally a state highway, which is why I think a lot of us old timers call it Klein Falls Highway. There's a jurisdictional transfer, much like the Powell Butte Highway was a state highway.
The state gave it to the county at some point.
Yeah, the county took it over. So anyways, as you're coming down from the north, you'll see that roundabout and the deflection will slow you. So when you enter to more of Tumalo proper to the south at intersection, you will be traveling at a slower speed as you come in. Of course, you got the roundabout at the other end at Cook. So you'll be going through the heart of Tumalo at a much slower speed than you would otherwise. And then in terms of all that traffic coming, the Thornburg traffic is built into the traffic projection models, because they did their study, so long ago. I was at ODOT. It was, I think, 2004, 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there. So the number of units they're having has actually gone down. So that traffic is baked into our assumptions. So it's already, I know a lot of people were concerned about we weren't dealing with Thornburg traffic because they haven't any vertical construction. In terms of Traffic Geek land, yes, we know that they're having traffic because we've used their traffic study based on their original approval and some subsequent stuff. That's why the ODOT roundabout took that into account. In terms of what you would do with Klein Falls, sorry for the long-winded answer. It's my last answer, so I'm going to melt.
Yeah,
So in terms of the in terms of the Klein Falls roundabout at Tumalo, again, the road department will go through a series of intersection improvement concepts for that. Some may be roundabout, some may not be roundabout, but they'll go through a design. There'll be a public outreach process like there is with any road department construction project. And so there'll be a chance for the public to take more of their thoughts to the road department and share what they do like, what they don't like. And so while we're going through the Tumalo Community Plan, the TSP, it will not be the last chance to comment on that intersection. Should the road department actually build a project there.
Great. Okay.
Now, I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might.
Well, thank you for your service to Deschutes County and the people of the area. You mentioned your ODOT career and then Deschutes County career. So thank you very much for your expertise. And
Thanks. It's a great outfit to work for. It was a
There
good
we
gig.
go.
I really liked working for the county. So
That's very nice of you to say, Peter. How many years have you been with the county?
17,
17.
and it was 13 ODOT and 3 at Eastern Oregon State College.
Oh, in LeGrand?
Mhm.
Oh, Isn't it a university now?
It was a college when I taught there.
Okay. Well, they have heated sidewalks. That's all I know. And I'm like, how did they manage that over in LeGrand? But anyway, no, it's been a pleasure working with you and thank you so much. And don't forget that the Christine, the one lady did say about going through these things with your horse trailer. So
I don't want dizzy
That's what the truck apron's for. So that you have that little mountable curb so you can take those larger
Low.
overlength vehicles over there.
I know. Definitely we need them.
Maybe the horses don't like being tilted.
We get dizzy.
But
Okay, all set here. Thank you so much.
Enjoy your retirement. Yes.
And you're in good hands with Tarek.
And now we'll talk about chocolate sauce. So item number 5, economic
Perfect
development
transition.
loan, conversion for Holy Cacao.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Eric Kropp, Deputy County Administrator. Joining me is Eric Strobel, the Director of EDCO Sisters Country, and also Wyatt Woods, who is the owner of Holy Cacao, which is the business that the loan conversion is part of. Just as background, this is an economic development loan conversion request. The economic development loan program is designed to create jobs in Deschutes County by either expanding jobs from existing businesses or encouraging businesses outside the area to relocate to Deschutes County. The way the program works is it starts out as a loan. There are specific metrics, and once they're met, the loan converts to, or the loan converts to a grant. This particular loan was approved in 2021 and called for the creation of at least 6 new full-time positions by October 1st of 2022. There's a requirement to maintain these new positions for a 12-month period, and the average salary needed to be at least $48,000. Also, I want to add, I should have mentioned it at the beginning, is Jen Patterson was going to present today, but she's under the weather, so I'm filling in for Jen Patterson. With that, I'll turn it over to Eric.
Hello, Commissioners. Good
Hello.
to see you again, staff. Thanks for the opportunity and thanks for the program. There's been a lot of companies that have come through that have received funds from the county to grow, to retain. So we really appreciate that. I think it's being used quite a bit. Eric went through the requirements, so I'll just go through the results. And then I'll hand it over to Wyatt to talk about his company and how this funding helped him. So for 2021-22 year, Holy Cacao had 7 employees at an average wage of $59,311, which is quite a bit above the average county wage. So that was great. In the latter part of 2022, the 8th hire occurred, and so for 2022 and 2023, Holy Cacao maintained 8 employees, and that would be 6 above the base of 2 where they started, at an average wage of $77,964, which is quite a bit more. And Wyatt might talk about that inflation, labor inflation, as one of the things that he has to deal with on a daily basis. So if there's no questions, I'll turn it over to Wyatt.
Thanks for joining us, Wyatt.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Wyatt. I started Holy Cacao back in Portland in 2009 and relocated my family out to Sisters about 5.5 years ago with the goal of relocating everything to Sisters. It took a little longer than I expected because it looked slightly different than what you see now, and that there were no industrial buildings that were open or existing to move into at that point. So we had to find a builder, build a building, and then COVID hit. So permitting processes were a little bit more delayed. And so eventually we got into a building in April 2021. Since that time, we've seen consistent aggressive growth. I'd say in the time that we've been here year over year, we've seen anywhere from 35 to 50% growth annually. We still consistently see those numbers. And I'd say that this forgivable loan we utilize to supplement the purchase of a more sophisticated piece of labeling equipment, which dramatically increases efficiencies, margins, and then affords us the opportunity to compensate employees at a higher wage. So my goal moving forward is to continue to, as the company grows, to be able to offer additional perks to our employees and more aggressive wages, because I realize that it's an expensive part of the country to live in, and we'd like to take care of those employees as well as possible. But I guess I didn't give a background. Basically, we make organic chocolate sauces, latte syrups, and chai. I'm sorry I didn't bring any today.
So sorry.
I know.
You don't know how sorry I am.
I was gonna apologize in
That'd be her
advance,
thing,
but next
I'm into chocolate.
next time around, you're welcome to come visit.
We have good access at local grocery stores.
Okay, good. So in any case, we are again, we continue to grow. There's lots of exciting things on the horizon, and I guess sort of next step is that we've basically filled the location that we're in, and so we'll be actively looking to build another location in the nearest future, pending interest rates. So yeah.
Well, congratulations and thank you. It is a partnership. I know we a company out of Portland is to Sisters, but it's good to have you here, and it's exciting to hear about those wage numbers that you have now and the efficiencies of your operation. So congratulations.
It's great to be here.
What, do you want to stay in Sisters Inn, or is that where, are you predominantly looking there to stay?
I am looking to stay in Sisters. I'd like to be a growing part of that community and the business community at large. It's, I think for a manufacturer like myself, it can certainly be more advantageous to build a facility like ours, and probably, honestly, in Redmond at this point. But I'd rather build in Sisters and make that commitment. So
great.
Yeah. Well, and to me, this is this project is the perfect example of what this forgivable loan program is for. And thank you very much for creating these jobs, paying these living wages, and contributing to the very rich, specialty foods and beverages sector in our community. That it's a pretty neat community. So I'm very excited to see this loan conversion move forward.
So is there a motion?
Move to authorize the county administrator to convert $12,000 economic development loan funds issued to Holy Cacao into a grant.
Second.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Thank you very much for joining us today. Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
A little bit ahead of schedule today. As I say, we scheduled the Tumalo Community Plan update for a good while, but yeah, please join us. Now, item number 6, proposed property for housing of clients with adult parole and probation.
Good morning. For the record, D.V. Holcomb, Director of Community Justice, and with me is Trevor Stevens, Business Manager for Community Justice. We are here today to ask for your consideration of approval to purchase property to serve justice-involved men who are on supervision with Community Justice, and designate an authorized representative to sign closing documents pending your approval. Before I start, I just want to say thanks so much to, in particular, Kim Riley and Christy Bollinger, who assisted us greatly and at great speed with this project over the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's been invaluable, so really appreciate it. I'm just going to kind of take you through your staff report to kind of reset us back with where this project has come from and how we get to where we are today. Since we are ahead of time, I think Christy may have missed it, but I think we're pinging her to see particularly if you have any questions for her. So if you recall, in May 2023, we were awarded a grant through the Governor's Emergency Order for Housing to provide a transitional and some longer-term housing for justice-involved men. At that time, there was a focus on those who were most chronically and acutely homeless, which tended to be those who had sex offense conditions. You'll see sort of as decision points have moved forward, we've been able to expand who this program will serve, which is kind of orienting you back with that was kind of an original.
You mentioned that, so this is governor's emergency orders, multi-agency coordination dollars, a pool of dollars came to Central Oregon. I think it was about $14 million. And this is one of those, basically.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you.
Well, I was going to be corrected by the number because I just said 1 million, you know.
Yes, that's quite a chunk.
$1,078,518. There we go. Corrected myself.
So we received approval to move forward after that grant receipt to issue a request for proposals for a private nonprofit provider to manage the program. So this will not be a Deschutes County staff program. We issued that RFP and an RFP committee met and approved the application of a nonprofit organization called Free on the Outside. And we have since then begun, grant agreement and negotiations with them over what that might look like. The next big step, of course, was to locate a property in which this program could be housed. And it had to be something of a unicorn property, given the different dynamics at play. And with fingers crossed, we found something that really manages to fit the bill. This is a triplex that is located on Southeast Wilson. It's a 3-unit, as triplex of course implies, a 3-unit building, 3 separate entrances, 3 different addresses. They're all 3-bedroom units with 1.5 bathrooms. I believe one
has one bathroom. Yeah.
So that is when I sort of referred initially to our initial target population. This does expand that quite greatly because they're 3 separate entrances and units. So we're really excited about that. Once a property was located and we received approvals to move forward on making offers and began to be in contracts, we did a community notification process, extremely important for a project like this, as you can imagine. And I think it's on page, I'm not sure your total page, what page number is there?
Page 160, kind of the bullets detail the process.
Detail on your page 160. Kind of details what that community notification process was. I won't repeat it here, but I will pause to see if you had any questions. And we have a minor update, just a little bit of update of additional community input that has come in since we submitted this.
Right. You left flyers for quite a few locations. 11 did not answer. So did you hear back from those people?
Free on the Outside heard from one person who had concerns about people being housed there who had, offenses against children, because he indicated there were lots of children in the neighborhood. So our proposed contractor, Free on the Outside, spoke with that person, kind of talked to them a little bit about what safety measures we'll have in place, and offered that person to either email myself or Mike Cross is the Free on the Outside contact. And we have not heard from that person since. We did, I think you might also have seen it, came through the county input, I think, into this agenda. We had 2 email letters of support for the program by individuals that I'm not familiar with. I'm not sure who they are, so I think they must have just seen it through the agenda process. So that was a really big key part, obviously, community notification. And we have had that one person who was concerned. I have not heard anything else other than those 2 who were in support, yay or nay. But that's the process now. Of course, that's kind of an ongoing, that should you approve this, that we will build that in with the understanding of the sensitivity of public safety and how important it is for neighbors to know what's going on.
I mean, one additional dimension of the community notification and people's opportunity to provide input. I do believe that this project did get some media coverage. So, oftentimes we that's when we hear from people is when there's been some media coverage, and I don't think that or it's quite possible that the emails that came in are in response to the media coverage as much as people tracking our Board of Commissioners agenda packets.
Yes, we did. I think as actually, once this was posted to the agenda, we did receive an inquiry from KDMB. I spoke with that, Mike.
Right. You did. It was on the news.
All right, so finding that unicorn property that actually worked in a neighborhood that was going to be workable, with some good distance from parks or schools or anything like that, which this property is. Pending community notifications and, really great amounts of concern that might make us kind of need to rethink our decision on our location. Those were sort of the big ones. And then of course, this is our third sort of hurdle or opportunity right now to take a look at that project. And we're kind of at that final stage because we kind of met those important things. We have a property, the budget, the asking price, and what has been accepted at this point is within the grant budget that we have. There were several fixes, maintenance and repairs that needed to be done after the inspection. We have a good amount of budget right now for most of those. We have asked the MAC committee for additional funding in the event that we need some more immediate repairs. There's nothing in the property right now that prevents, from a safety or health perspective from somebody moving in. And then sort of another really important piece that I actually is fully part of that community notification. This property did have existing tenants. Now the building was for sale, of course, prior to us making an offer. And those, one can't tell what would happen with residents in a new purchase anyway. But to kind of support those folks to find a place to move to, knowing how tough the housing market is, we built into our offer a financial incentive for at least one of the tenants to vacate by the time we need to have occupancy at least one unit. And then additional financial incentives for the other two remaining occupants to leave at a expedited, but not as expedited as that first person. We did get an offer or an acceptance from one of the tenants who actually, there was I'll quote what I read because I was surprised. It said was really excited to have that incentive and had some plans to be able to move forward. So we felt good about that because we didn't feel great about, having a property and, for the public good, having to inconvenience at the very least private citizens. So it seems like we've been able to navigate that challenging situation as well as we could.
And so that will open up a whole one of the three units, not just one of the bedrooms in one of the three units. Okay.
Yeah, so this is kind of where we're at. The property is really great as far as its space. It allowed us to double kind of the annual number of individuals we think we're going to be able to serve, as well as having that separation of units means we can expand the population in terms of who needs. And I think that'll help us to just remain really flexible and agile and able to meet the biggest public safety needs for housing when we see those and as those develop, instead of being more pigeonholed with just one type of population. I will pause if there's anything coming up now and then give Trevor a moment to see if I've missed anything important.
So Free on the Outside is our partner on this. They're going to be the property owner in the end. And then how does the relationship with parole and probation with Free on the Outside? Is it kind of exclusive? I mean, are they going to do anything with anybody else, or is this only for the county?
It is only for
They do
operate with the grant agreement with them and have quite a lot of administrative oversight of their program development and their program management, as well as, of course, if not daily, several times weekly, our parole and probation officers will be visiting and doing home visits and supporting the clients that are there.
You mentioned, I believe last time that they're doing this work in many communities around the state of Oregon. Are those relationships with county parole and probation programs as well, or okay?
Yeah, I think they look different.
What they do,
but they're almost all folks who at least started out on supervision and maybe their supervision expired, but now they're able to actually are they all in supervision still?
I think they have some houses that transition people off of supervision because they have some more long-term options there. But the majority of their 23 houses are for clients that are on supervision.
Right.
Yeah, and working with people past their supervision period, even better. That'd be
Yeah.
Maybe they can do that next year.
Some of those conditions are sort of lifelong, or there's always a record there.
Yeah,
that might make it difficult for them to stabilize.
Yeah. I'm intrigued. It's really exciting that we're getting, basically way more units, way more bedrooms than anticipated for our dollars. And I would love to know. I'm looking at Christie on this. Actually, is this because this is multifamily housing? I mean, per dollar, do you just get more multifamily housing, for your expenditure? Is that why we're able to, serve a lot more clients than we had originally anticipated?
I'm not sure I fully understand your question.
That there was a $1 million grant made, roughly $1 million grant made. There was expectations about, how many people we might be able to serve. And I assume that you back that out into how many bedrooms there were going to be, and anticipated that you could get for that $1 million. And it seems like we got more. And from a real estate perspective, I'm trying to understand, how we got, in this crazy real estate market that we're operating in, how we got, basically a lot more capacity than anticipated. Was it just conservative budgeting? Was it, just a unicorn property that fell out of the sky in our laps? Or, is the fact that this is multifamily housing, does that mean that we just get more housing per dollar that we spend?
My sense of it is sort of kind of a combination of what you described, because our community justice partners, along with Free on the Outside, worked really hard to find a property. And as we all know, there's not a lot of, property that would fit this model in the city of Bend. So I kind of see it a little bit as a unicorn as well. And then just because it is a triplex, it can serve more of the population that they're trying to target. So I think it's a good situation.
And it was built in 1977, so it's a lot older than a lot of other things. And a lot of times people want something newer. So how much more funding did you ask for than DV through the MAC in order to actually finish it up if you find something bigger than you imagined?
We asked them for an additional 50 to 60,000.
Okay.
Great. So any other questions, or is there a motion?
I guess we need two motions?
Mhm.
Move approval of the purchase of the property located at 640-652 Southeast Wilson Avenue in Bend to provide shelter and housing for clients of adult parole and probation.
Second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And Chair will vote yes.
And I'll move approval of board signature on order number 2023-055, designating an authorized representative to sign closing documents on behalf of Deschutes County.
I'll second the motion.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
Chair will vote yes. Here we go. Another step forward. Thank you.
Stevie, I do have a question. Where you say they have that lifelong record with the sex offenders, would a sex offender then qualify to live here forever?
We don't think so.
Based on our grant agreement, they'll have to be required to be on supervision. So while they may have a lifelong record, that individual may not be on supervision for that entire time. So at that point, that individual would not be able to live there.
Okay.
But Free on the Outside, I know they work to look for other opportunities to transition those individuals into more long-term options.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we are 30 minutes ahead, but I think we can work through this today. Everybody's in the room. So at this time, item number 7, convert 1.0 FTE from limited duration to regular in health services.
Hi, Commissioners. For the record, Sarah Cronin, Behavioral Health Division Program Manager. For your consideration today, I'm requesting, or the department's requesting, the conversion of a limited duration position to a regular position. This position stemmed out of a Central Oregon Health Council grant that we were awarded in 2021 The grant ends in July of 2024, and we have remaining funds. So the original grant was for about $830,000. We have remaining as of July 2024, we'll have roughly 236,000 left. Our proposal is to, out of the original grant, we have 2 positions that we want to continue with one of those positions past 2024. With the plan as of fiscal year 26 to be making decisions about weaving this into our budget, or if it still remains a priority. This position serves older adults. It's a really under-resourced segment of our population and a growing one in Deschutes County, with the estimates by 2030, 25% of the population will be over the age of 65. A very vulnerable population as well, that are often underinsured, as Medicare does not pay for a wide variety of behavioral health services and supports. We did receive approval from COHC to extend this grant and continue with one position doing fundamentally the same activities as outlined in the original grant.
Well, it's exciting to be able to provide these services. I know the Health Council providing these grants really are trying to set direction to needs in the community and providing these funds. And you're saying 2 people are doing this now, and this is converting one of those to that permanent position.
I have no questions about this proposal.
Let's see, so I'll make the motion moving approval of resolution number 2023-065 to convert one limited duration full-time employee to a regular full-time employee position within the Health Services Fund.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Adair?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And Chair will vote yes. Thank you. There we go. We're getting there today. Item number 8, discussion and consideration of safe parking orders. So we got a lot of input on this one too. Somebody must have put the word out.
Good morning. For the record, I'm Eric Kropp, Deputy County Administrator. This is a follow-up item from the board's November 27th work session. We talked about a proposal on safe parking and 2 draft board orders. At the conclusion of that work session, the board directed staff to come back at a Wednesday meeting and present the program and proposal. What you'll see on the slides are a lot of what you saw on November 27th. But this is a proposal for safe parking in the county. There are 2 draft board orders. The first thing to note is this is not land use. Also, the general approach for this proposed program is to be consistent with the city of Bend or the land within the Bend urban growth boundary and the land a mile from the urban growth boundary of Bend, and also to be as consistent as possible with Redmond's program for the land within the Redmond UGB and a mile from the Redmond UGB. There are 2 draft board orders. 2023-052 is within the urban growth boundary. And then the second board order is 053. That's 1 mile from the urban growth boundary. And there's an important distinction between those 2 board orders. The first one within the UGB, within the city of Bend UGB, it authorizes overnight camping of up to 3 vehicles. The property owner must be a business, nonprofit, or public agency. As part of the program requirement, and this is contained in state law through House Bill 2006, is there must be access to sanitation, including bathroom, hand washing, and trash disposal facilities. And then no fee may be required for overnight stays. And the main reason for that is it starts to look like recreational camping if there are fees. The same board order talks about within there's a second tier for the City of Bend UGB called transitional overnight parking. That has the same requirements for bathroom, hand washing, trash disposal. However, under this program, there must be case management services. The concept is that caseworkers work closely with the participants on their needs and also to move them to the next step of getting out of homelessness. Under this tier, there also must be notification to the neighbors. And rather than being limited to 3 vehicles, under this tier, there's a limit of up to 6 vehicles, and it could include temporary huts or tents. And then there's a footnote there that public entities may allow, if the public entity, if it's the land is if it's a public entity land or leased to a public entity, the number of vehicles can be higher. Then for the City of Redmond UGB, again, to mirror their program, it allows up to 6 vehicles. It's only vehicles. They also have to have the plan for bathroom, hand washing, trash disposal, and case management. It's allowed at religious institutions, nonprofits, public agencies, and commercial property, but it is not allowed on residential property. Second draft board order is outside the UGB, but it has to be within a mile of the UGB. And that mile within the UGB was based on discussions with this board. For the City of Bend, it's only vehicles. It does not include tents or huts. And the reason for that is HB 2006 differentiates between land within the UGB and outside. It is limited to zones that are not resource land. So MUA 10, which is mixed use agricultural, public facility. RC is residential commercial? No. Rural commercial. I was looking to our county administrator.
That's a commercial.
Rural industrial.
Rural industrial, RR10 is rural residential 10. For the City of Redmond, land outside the UGB, it's also only vehicles and is limited to those zones listed above.
Is that because there aren't public facility or rural commercial zones within a mile of the UGB of the City of Redmond?
I believe that's the case. Yep. Our CDD director and Stephanie from legal that I've been working with nodded yes.
Okay.
So that's the proposal. Again, there's 2 separate board orders. The first one is within the new UGB. The second one is a mile from within it. At this point, happy to answer any questions.
Thoughts?
I'm very excited that we might be able to expand safe parking opportunities within the footprints of these 2 cities. These are places where safe parking is doing a tremendous job of providing stepping stones for people to move out of homelessness, and it'll be great to allow those efforts to expand, to piggyback on, to add on to the efforts within the cities of Bend and Redmond.
Do you know of any properties that qualify for this or anybody that's interested in doing this?
Nope.
Any thoughts, Commissioner?
I'm working with churches inside the City of Bend because, as I've mentioned earlier, we only have currently 4 churches in Bend that are part of this. And I believe, yeah, they don't have that many spots. The church by Caldera does have 5 spots. That's the most of any of the 4 churches. And some of them have incredibly teeny parking lots. So thank goodness they have 2 spots, and they've been incredibly successful. So I'm hoping that we can look. I know we had our county land. Nothing new was added to that. And, hopefully we can scrutinize it a little bit more and, find something that will work.
So the concept here, as I say, I mean, if there's something tangible and we're moving something forward, that's wonderful. But these are orders that, may not have anybody engaged. That's what I worry about here. And we talked about it at that work session where, rural churches, safe parking for congregations that were ready for this. They're mostly on EFU resource lands. And we just don't even have anybody to utilize this. So, the second order steps outside of what's probably legislated authority from the state. So I'm just acknowledging where we're at here. I mean, it's going to be a feel good to do this, but we may not have anybody take this up.
Well, when we talk about housing development, I often hear you talk about the private sector and the free market and, entities out in the community taking opportunities and doing things with them. And in my mind, this is exactly the same thing. We create the envelope and we rely on our community, the private sector, maybe the nonprofit slice of the private sector, to do its job. So I'm excited to just create the opportunity and see what happens.
And that's what we're doing, is what I think what we're doing here. We're creating an opportunity that may or may not ever be utilized, or we might even have the capacity to do it.
Well, I think creating the opportunity is incredibly important. This is the good first step. So, safe parking has been very successful, and it could be utilized more in our community. There are people that really do fit in this. And, I believe it's a good start.
As I say, I mean, it's a great idea. Let's go do it. But we might put a couple orders in here and have nobody respond. And then we just have this in place. I'm just acknowledging that up front. As I say, I'm not, if somebody wants to do it, this is exciting, but I just haven't had any connection. So that's why I was asking my fellow commissioners, is there anybody even asking for this? Within the UGB, there may be a play or not, but.
Well, since I've been talking to the churches, I think it's really important that we have done this, because it shows that we believe in it. When I go to them and say, gee, would you please do this on your church parking lot? I think it would really fit and it's wonderful. Well, we're doing it. If we do this, I just feel like that's incredibly more appropriate.
So Eric, is there wasn't a recommended motion listed on our staff report today.
So is this going to come back?
Does that mean we cannot act on these two orders today, or and we would need to bring it back, or could we make motions on these orders?
Yeah, you can make motions on them. If the board would like to move ahead, I recommend two separate motions. And really, it's just board approval of each motion.
Okay. And legal counsel, do we need to, in phrasing these motions, do we need to just give the order numbers, or do we read the whole title of the order, or
I mean,
what does it look
just
like?
do move approval of board signature and then name the order number and read the title, and then do a second one, the other one.
Well, if we're ready for motions, I can.
Sure.
Or I can make the motion for the first order. So I move board approval and signature on order number 2023-052, an order implementing portions of Oregon House Bill 2006 from 2021 and allowing for individuals or families to reside overnight in a vehicle, yurt, or tent within an urban growth boundary.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? One question I have is, so this is an order implementing something. How would we, I'm just thinking reviewing it after a year. I mean, if nobody ever uses this, is it valuable to remove it someday, or just let it
It says
age?
until 28. Continuing until June 30th of 2028.
Thank you very
Eric
much.
thought of somebody.
Yeah.
Thought of that. Thank
If
you.
I mentioned that
Thank you,
before,
Kim.
yeah. So as I say, I mean, let's go do this, but who's going to be out there? So that was my comment. Any other discussion? So seeing none, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes.
And I move board approval and signature of order number 2023-053, an order implementing portions of Oregon House Bill 2006 from 2021 and allowing for individuals or families to reside overnight in a vehicle within 1 mile of a UGB.
Second.
Any other discussion? So I will not be supporting this one. This does step outside of, what's kind of clearly defined as the authority. And as I say, I mean, if it passes and somebody exercises it, that's fine too. I mean, we want to help people that want help here.
Yeah, well, if this was the one that you were asking about, whether there's any specific interest in, I would say that the Gales property we've been discussing for many months now is an example of a property that may in the future be rural residential zoned within 1 mile of the urban growth boundary, which where there is interest in pursuing a safe parking type facility.
Yes, it's right across the street from proper zoning.
Okay, so any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And Chair will vote no on this one. So it still has passed though, so there we go.
I'd like to thank Peter and Stephanie for their assistance on these draft board orders, and also the City of Bend and Redmond staff. We worked very closely and collaboratively. They gave great input on earlier drafts.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, so that's the end of our published agenda. We do have a couple of other items for today. Proposed letter in support of the Redmond Airport efforts. It was put in our mailbox. The Federal Transportation Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, TIFIA loan process, capped at $100 million. The ask is to go to $200 million. It's a full-on federal ask. Any thoughts? I'm supportive of this letter.
Right,
Yeah.
the letter.
Yeah. So go ahead and
Yes.
just make the, yeah.
Yes,
Any
I move that we support this letter with our 3 signatures.
Second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Dare.
Yes.
Commissioner Chang.
Yes.
And Chair votes yes. So we'll get that signed. And that'll be to our federal delegation. Other items?
2 other items. One, we discussed if the board would like to begin any consideration of providing comments on the sustainable wildfire funding handout, which I do have an extra copy here if the commissioner would like it. Eric is prepared to summarize it, and then we can seek board comments or questions today. And if the board's not prepared to formalize comments today, we can certainly come back, because this is a big proposal with a lot of impacts, and certainly recognize the magnitude of this.
So let's lay this out a little bit and figure out what we know and what we don't know, and can then take it from there. Because I'm in that same spot where it's an interesting. I didn't bring. Thank you. It's an interesting, discussion. Oregon Department of Forestry funding for firefighting, but what does that mean for our local residents? And I think it's ODF protected properties, which there's forest lands, but also small rural properties.
Kevin Moriarty is going to join us. Via
great.
Zoom, but I'll introduce the item and help frame the discussion. There's a group with AOC, with a commissioner from Hood River, who is co-chairing that group and looking at wildfire funding. That group has put together what is called Sustainable Wildfire Funding Proposal, and they sent this proposal to commissioners and asked for feedback to their work group. So it could either be done individually or as the Board of County Commissioners. And of course, feedback is not required. But that's the ask that came from AOC. And I'll just start summarizing it, and then if Kevin is okay.
Good. Thank you for joining us, Kevin.
Kevin, if you're available and ready to take it away.
Sure. Good morning, commissioners. For the record, Kevin Moriarty, County Forester. Just a little highlights as far as the sustainable wildfire funding plan. I think the idea is to make the funding for the Oregon Department of Forestry a little more sustainable. So there was a plan developed essentially to look at Oregon Department of Forestry protection areas and what the costs are currently and what the cost could be potentially. And that's kind of what this plan looks at. So if you notice in the plan, it kind of breaks it down to lot size, up to 1/10 of an acre, up to 100 acres, and up to 1,000 acres. And so some of the changes I notice is the lot sizes up to 10 to 18 acres actually would increase in cost. And then for the 100-acre lots, it would actually increase as well. But for the 1,000-acre lots, they're looking at decreasing the cost. So basically trying to redistribute that cost a little more between all the tax lots. One other notable item in there is that they're putting a $10 account, statewide property account, to every landowner, every tax lot within the state of Oregon. One thing to notice is that Oregon Department of Forestry protection areas do not cover the entire state of Oregon. They do mostly cover just Western Oregon, and then up to about Central Oregon. Most areas in Southeast Oregon and a lot of your metropolitan areas, especially in Deschutes County, like Bend and Redmond and Portland, and that metropolitan areas like Eugene, do not receive ODF protection. So you would be asking for funding from areas that actually don't receive ODF protection. Those are kind of the big items I noticed in the document, and we're just here to provide information or comments.
I have a lot of questions. And it's very possible that there's a more in-depth report than this little 2-page handout that covers some of this. But I mean, if we're admittedly the fee that they're asking every single tax lot in the state of Oregon to pay is not huge. But if you're asking every single property owner across the state of Oregon to pay into a fund, and the protection is only going to be provided, the service that comes out of that is only going to be provided on ODF protected lands. It seems like this seems like a kind of problematic formula to me. I mean, the folks who are paying, folks who would be paying this presumably are paying into the state general fund already, as citizens of the state of Oregon. And residents of the state of Oregon. And if we've already established that mechanism for everyone in the state of Oregon to contribute to protection within ODF protected areas, then I don't really understand why they're seeking this additional fee for every single property owner in the state.
Does it say that though? At the top, it says property ownership within 9 ODF forest protection districts and 3 forest protective associations. So it doesn't sound like everybody is being charged the same.
I believe there's this $10 fee that will be charged across the state, every single property owner.
At Commissioner Adair, at the bottom of the document, it says properties outside.
We'll get the $10 charge.
Areas.
So how much income is that? Do you know, Kevin?
What's the question, Commissioner?
I said, how much are they going to get if everybody has to pay $10?
I think they were estimating at generating $2 million of revenue from that, which would be probably the lion's share of the fund.
2 million or
20 million.
So this is just a proposal that was shared to us. We're
20 million,
adjusting it.
2 million
So
accounts.
it's going
20
into the
million revenue.
25 session, so it's a year.
One of the things I would like to see is basically a chart for counties across the state of Oregon showing, how many acres of protected land they have, or how many properties they have. Probably acres would be how many acres of protected land they have, and how many acres of. I assume non-federal lands won't have to. I mean, federal lands won't have to pay this, but it would also to compare the land base that's protected and the land base that's paying in each county. Because this could basically be this formula could be being set up by people who are trying to figure out how to get people from other counties to pay for protection in their county. And I appreciate the value of ODF fire suppression resources on lands all over the state. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Deschutes County residents need to be subsidizing ODF in other parts of the state. So that's I would like to see that as part of if we were going to take any action on this or weigh in favor or against. If AOC is asking us about our opinion on this, they should be able to provide us that kind of information. One of my other concerns is, so we're talking about fire suppression capacity, and a significant amount of ODF fire suppression action service is ultimately federally reimbursed. So every time we do an emergency conflagration declaration, when the governor declares conflagrations, that opens the doorway for federal funds to come in, I believe through FEMA, to support, basically it's retroactive. The ODF firefighters run out and fight a fire, and then or you use contractors, and then they later on, in some cases years later, the federal government replaces a substantial amount of those funds. And in the way that this is kind of presented, doesn't talk about federal contribution to fire suppression efforts at all. And that was very puzzling to me. So I'd like to understand a little bit better how where does the federal money that's coming in fit into this, and how much of the total cost of suppression efforts by ODF does that offset? I also wanted to understand those are some of the big things. I guess, ODF's primary responsibility is to provide protection on ODF protected lands. I do know that ODF, just like our fire protection, local fire protection districts, just like the Forest Service and the BLM, they engage in mutual aid. So ODF is responding to fire sometimes outside of just their protected land areas, and also that there's all these other agencies that are also responding to fires on ODF protected lands. So I would want to know that ODF is again, not just using these dollars to respond to fires on ODF protected lands, if a whole lot of people outside of ODF protected lands are paying for these services. And so if there could be some analysis, breakdown, explanation of that, how much is ODF, how much support is ODF providing to fire suppression efforts, outside of ODF protected lands, because that could very well justify people who are outside of ODF protected areas paying for that service. I think those are some of my key questions. But I have a lot of concerns about the way that this is structured. And again, my primary concern is, if there is that this, if we're not watchful about this, this could be a way for communities that have a whole lot of ODF protected lands basically to get other communities to pay for the protection of those lands. And I don't think that that's an appropriate, that may not be an appropriate way for this to be funded, and may essentially result in the export of dollars from Deschutes County to provide services in other places.
So it's kind of educational at this point. This is a Senate requested work group looking for sustainable wildfire funding into the 25 session. Thanks for your thoughts on that. We'll figure out a position. This does fit right back into the whole big picture of forest maintenance and climate change beliefs and biomass plants. I mean, you could go all over with this about what could be done here. Beneficial combustion, and instead of just watching forests start on fire and then pouring money on them until it rains. I think that was our senator.
I mean, this is if I'm tracking correctly, this is only about funding fire suppression. It's not about prevention efforts and fuels reduction work.
Oh, I know. But I mean, it's just the whole concept would run you to this. We've determined that, we need to protect the people and their private property. So then we're going to take some money from everybody. I'm just saying there's big high level philosophy in this thing too. I'm not debating that. I'm just observing it.
A question for the board. The questions that Commissioner Chang brought up, do you want staff to draft a memo on behalf of the board with those questions, or for those to come from Commissioner Chang individually?
Well, so this is our kind of lobbying efforts too. Maybe we just start to put this in the bucket of, legislative advocacy and efforts.
Yeah, at this point, there's a draft proposal that AOC asked for comment and input on.
And that draft is this.
Correct.
So that's the action item right now, is giving us some feedback on this. Yeah.
Here's a draft proposal.
Yeah.
We welcome your input, comments, concerns. I noted several that
I guess I don't have a feeling for the timing of it. I mean, is there before the next meeting or before something?
The email said as soon as possible.
Yeah. Okay. So they're asking for us to move on.
It was before the next AOC subcommittee group meeting, which I'm not sure when that is.
Okay. Well, and everything you mentioned is valid. I mean,
yeah. And I'm not saying that this is bad. I'm saying they need to give me a lot of information before I know whether essentially other communities are trying to gouge Deschutes County for their fire protection.
So a proposal is I could draft up a memo from staff that says we brought this to a board, today's board meeting for discussion, and here were questions that came up.
Well, and then some local analysis real quick, like Kevin, you already may have some thoughts about, how much is ODF protected land? How much is small private residential property owners? How much of it is, working lands? How much is, state owned, privately owned? There may be some ways for us to provide some simple metrics from Deschutes County's point of view.
Kevin sent me a link to a GIS program that has lots of layers that talk about the ODF boundaries and the protection land. So we could forward that link to the board.
That's fine. Yeah. Okay.
We could also work with our GIS department to get some of that data you're looking for, Commissioner DeBoe.
Well, yeah, maybe put in a couple paragraphs, from Deschutes County's point of view, these are the facts on the ground, just a couple of paragraphs, and then that'd be great feedback for somebody to say, oh, is that what it looks like in Deschutes County? Any thoughts, Commissioner?
Well, it's interesting that people have more land are going to pay less. So that's fascinating their analysis. I don't know. I have to look at it some more. I know this applies to me, so I don't want to really say anything till I've really looked at it.
And there are good reasons to try to hold the assessment for large, particularly industrial forest landowners down, because we're seeing all over the state, for industrial forest landowners say, my tax burden for having this land is getting so great that the profitability of my timber operation cannot sustain it. And so I'm going to sell this property for, some, Wall Street billionaire to come and, have a little, timber playground out in the state.
Carbon credits or something.
Well, carbon credits carbon credits are typically tied to a forest management plan that shows that you're actually sequestering carbon, in mid to long terms, but conversion of working forest land to other uses is a real concern. Typically carbon credits are happening in the context of continued working lands. Make the rotation a little bit longer so that you keep carbon on the land a little, you have some additional carbon addition to trees before they're harvested, and then that is sequestered away in solid wood products, things like that.
Kevin and I will work on a draft and share it with the board.
Right. Thank you so much.
Would like us to do a different direction.
That would be great. Thank you. I mean, one other high level kind of consideration here, the history of ODF, the ODF Protection Division, it was really designed to protect trees, protect timber value, was not designed to protect homes. And increasingly, any agency that's engaged in fire suppression, has to deal with protecting people's homes. That might be the reason why they want to assess a higher fee on smaller properties. I did see they have a two-tiered rate, one with house on it and one without. But it would be, I would want to know from ODF whether that is part of their commitment with receiving these additional funds. Is we're explicitly saying, we're here not to just protect timber value, but to prevent people's houses from burning to the ground too.
Yeah, we'll have that.
And that, if that's the case, then that may very well be, worth, paying additional fees.
Well, all I know is my property tax bill, I believe, got split up like 2 years ago. And I want to look at that because I believe that's why it was split for this specific charging.
Okay, at this time, any other items?
Commissioner, I didn't know if you wanted to raise the question about the St. Charles.
Yeah, I had a note for that. Good. So St. Charles Gala is a fundraising event for the St. Charles Foundation, February 3rd this year. Communicating with our treasurer, Bill Kuhn, he's on that board. The request is that maybe we sponsor a table, and the concept would be maybe a half a table and this is an opportunity for us as the Board of Commissioners to really kind of be involved at the level of leadership in the healthcare system, because there's a lot of folks go to this event. So, and we either make a decision today or do it in the near future, but Saints Gala, I think tables are like $2,500. So my thought was to possibly sponsor a table or a half a table. And if we do a half a table, my point is, if I would attend, I would pay for my spouse, so then we're not subsidizing non-county people. And it's a fundraiser event anyway. So by attending, we'll be maybe expected to donate. So the concept was, would we be interested? So February 3rd, and as I say, we could all end up there as the Board of Commissioners too. Yeah.
So is it a table to 8 or 10?
I don't know that offhand.
Okay.
I likely will not be able to attend. Friday is no school day, and the Sunday afterward is my birthday, so they'll probably be
Do something, put
we
something
would
together.
probably not be in town.
Good, okay.
That said, I would be okay with supporting the event, or we could instead of going this route of sponsorship, we could go to our lottery dollar fundraising event contribution system.
Yeah, so as I say, I just bringing it up. Oh, there's Mr. Kuhn right there. So yeah, this is other items. We are talking about St. Scala sponsorship. How many per table was the question? I didn't have information.
How much per table?
How many? 8 or 10?
How many tables are you gonna have?
Nope. How many people sit at a
The
table?
table. Is it 250 a person or is it,
Good, the way you took that.
or is it
three different
more?
ways. How many people at a table? Do you know if it was 8 or 10? It is, okay, 10, yeah. So as I say, this is just the start of the conversation, even if we don't get there today. It's just so my fellow commissioners hear about it. As I say, Bill and I spoke about it yesterday. February 3rd is the date, so.
Yeah, in my mind, I'm on the foundation board. I'm vice chair this year. And it's a premier fundraising event for St. Charles. The recipient this year is going to be the Three Sisters Rural Track Program, which is developing, so it's a residency program to train new physicians. Joint partnership with OHSU, Mosaic Medical, and St. Charles. And I think it's an opportunity for the county to demonstrate support for our regional healthcare system. And I'm going to be there. So again, I think it's a great opportunity for Deschutes County to participate in this program.
So St. Charles Foundation is the nonprofit. This is multiple health systems working together for residency of new doctors. So it's creating new doctor path.
Yeah, it's a 10-year commitment. The goal is to train anywhere between 25 and 30 physicians over that period of time. Annual funding requirement is about $1 million a year. So the gala event, the primary recipient of funds generated at the gala event will be this program.
Bill, as you were just before you walked in, I was saying that, I'm supportive of making some kind of a contribution to this, but I'll also we have through our discretionary grant program, lottery funds. There's also a pot for providing nonprofits with sponsorship dollars for their fundraising events. So I don't know whether that's a more appropriate track to address a sponsorship of this event than
maybe a combination of the two. I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna obviously leave that up to your discretion, but again, thinking about, I think this is the kind of event that I believe the county would benefit from being in attendance. And I won't be able to have other county employees that are directly involved in the healthcare space be a participant as well. So anyway,
I'll be out of town that weekend, but I'm still supportive of some kind of sponsorship.
And I've attended in the past, and I think I'll be available. So as I say, my wife and I would be there one way or another. So as I say, we might want to just put a specific
Thank you
together
for bringing it up.
Yeah. So yeah, we're not going to make that decision today, but I mean, there's support. So we'll, come back, just kind of drop it on another item.
Okay, that sounds good. We just need to nail down the funding source so that we
Yep.
can clearly budget accordingly for it. That's going to be the key. So, but
Now that you've heard about it, I'll bring it back more specifically.
Okay.
Okay.
okay, let me know if there's any further questions or clarifications. So
And when is
watching remotely, and I saw this.
Yeah. Oh, and I mentioned you. Yep.
Does anybody know off the top of their head when the next discretionary grant cycle? Will it be before February?
But we could allocate it before,
Well, and
before
this-
February, and we would identify the fundraising component of video lottery as we heard that.
And as Bill mentioned, I mean, this could be, our health director, public health, behavioral health leaderships. This is the kind of division I'm having. The folks at the table are Deschutes County. So that's what I'm envisioning.
And those were my thoughts as well.
Yeah.
It'd be a great opportunity to have the right people involved in the event and in general being very supportive of the effort at a regional healthcare level.
Or the health council. Probably everybody in the health council will be there already. Everybody that's a player there.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe.
Well, the answer is yes. We just got to get down to specifics.
We'll work out the details.
Yep.
Sorry about being late. I just saw it come up.
Oh yeah, I figured. Thank you very much.
We're way ahead of schedule.
Yeah, from what we thought we'd do. So, any other items? Seeing none.
I have a few.
Oh, you do. Okay, sorry. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Wolf Livestock Depredation Compensation and Financial Assistance Advisory Committee is meeting tonight at 5:30. The primary focus is going to be preventative measures for preventing depredation from occurring in the first place. We spent a lot of time at the last meeting talking about compensation rates for when depredations occur. So this is the other half of the information we need to process before we're able to start drafting an application for submission early in 2024.
Email from Eastern Oregon counties. I think it was Umatilla County offering an educational event for public safety, DA, and commissioners. I think it was mentioned. So I don't remember the date, but that was an email that just came through recently.
In January, yes.
Public safety event.
Training. Did you see that? It was CC'd to all of us, and it was Umatilla County.
Todd Nash is in charge.
To be able to understand the facts around a depredation event and confirming. So it's probably a body of knowledge being shared with whoever wants to attend that training. So in fact, you could mention that tonight.
Good to share with the community. Two other things. Yesterday afternoon, Judge Ashby convened a group of people. Mostly, basically everyone is a subgroup of the local public safety coordinating council to talk further about the adult drug treatment court and what bringing it back or bringing something like it back might look like in preparation for the legislative short session that's coming. There are already in various legislative proposals. There are proposals that are floating around that say basically just bring back the Deschutes County Adult Treatment Court the way it was, and the judge was very concerned about that. He thinks that there's real opportunities to do something different that might actually be more effective in the long term in reducing the number of people who are struggling with addiction and committing crimes. So the idea that came out of that group that was starting to form, and I was just trying to track the conversation because it was Captain Schultz from the sheriff's office, Stevie was there, DA Gunnels, Judge Ashby, Chief Krantz from the city of Bend, Councilor Broadman, and I was the one who knew least about the ins and outs of the system that they were talking about. But if I was tracking correctly, basically the suggestion was the adult treatment court was extremely resource intensive. And well, actually, sorry, Nick was there. So Nick could ground truth, could ground truth what I'm summarizing here. The adult treatment court was extremely resource intensive, dealt with people who were very high need, very high risk. And if they didn't go to adult treatment court, their next step was not jail, but prison. They would be headed to a state prison. And so in a lot of ways is a very intensive intervention late in the life cycle of somebody's addiction and criminal activities, and very successful, but also very resource intensive. So the thought was, can we create something that actually catches people sooner when they are, early in their life cycle of addiction and criminal activity, and could that be a more efficient way to get people out of a pathway of addiction and repeated criminal activity? And so they were talking about something that it wouldn't necessarily be a specialty court. It would be a court-related or court-connected program. Was that the phrase?
Connected was the term they continue to use. Yes.
And so now Captain Schultz is going to work on trying to write that up for the group. And if it, I assume we'll see a draft of that soon. I think it would be great for the county to sign on to this as a policy idea. If we can all review it and we think it's a good idea.
Great.
Is that kind of what came out of that meeting, Nick?
Exactly. I was just kind of going through my notes, and that certainly captures what I heard yesterday. And just for the board's benefit, our district attorney, Steve Gunnels, will present the comprehensive approach next Wednesday. And so you'll see the full package of recommendations. You've already seen them, but an opportunity to ask questions. And then it was specifically number 7 that we were discussing because it references the specialty treatment court. Is that, I don't have it with me in front of me.
Right.
And the key is that has a defined meaning. And so the question is, what is the more appropriate language to forward the recommendations with a slight revision to that recommendation number 7.
Great.
Yeah. And, I mean, the other thing I would say about this comprehensive approach document is, it's interesting that AOC isn't signed on. And I think it would be worthwhile for us to consider at least as an individual county signing on to this. It seems like a pretty good comprehensive approach.
Well, and AOC not signing on may just be the logistics of getting everybody together, or I don't know that there's. Well, we'll see.
But this is, we wrote that short little letter with DA Gunnels, and I think this is way more substantial and seems to be very well thought out to me. The third thing I would report back is I did a coffee with a commissioner event in Sun River yesterday morning, and heard the big thing that a lot of people wanted to talk about was the appropriateness of certain pieces of federal land being hunting allowed areas, and exploring establishing a couple of real specific no hunting zones on the National Forest and BLM lands in the Sun River area and a little bit south of there. And so I explained to folks that Commissioner DeBone had said he would convene a big stakeholder discussion, and so you may very well be hearing from people that they want to know when that's happening and what it's going to look like.
Yeah, so that's coming around. It's just logistics at this point. Outreach to the Forest Service, and then there'll be a moment where it'll be a date set, and Department of Fish and Wildlife, State Police, Sheriff's Office, whoever, we'll get them all at the table. So coming around.
A lot of interest in that.
Well, and
relaying that back.
Yep. Okay. Anything else?
I did have coffee with Holly Jukes yesterday morning.
Great.
It's only my 5th year meeting with Holly, and she didn't think it was really very bad in July of 2019 when I met with her, but I'd heard from the community and they weren't happy what's been happening in China Hat. Yeah.
China Hat.
Okay, so we had shooting there is what her estimation was then, but
We were talking about hunting, so you're talking
Yeah.
about China Hat.
I'm talking about shooting guns and shooting guns by people and all those things that are happening. And apparently they're looking into adding more law enforcement for their community, probably not until after the first of the year, But, you know, I said, hey, people weren't happy in 19 and it's only magnified. And, you know, when you hear about the tonnage that's being pulled out of that area, the destruction of our public forests. So, yeah, we had a good conversation and hopefully something positive is going to come out of it.
And it just highlights that when people don't have a place to go and they're being forcibly ejected from certain places, they'll go to the place where it's there's least patrols, there's least harassment, and other things. And that doesn't mean, oh, we need to just increase the patrol out in the forest, because then we'll just push them a mile farther back into the woods. In my mind, it means we need to get more serious about creating places for people to go that provide pathways out of homelessness. And that's what we were dealing with our safe parking discussion today. So I'm glad we did that.
Anything else?
Nope.
Seeing none, meeting adjourned.